Are you an adventurer looking to take your hunt to the next level? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to East Meets West Hunt with your host, Bo Martonik.
Okay, we're live here with East Meets West. About to get scrizzy. I'll let Bo take over here.
All right, guys. We're back for another episode of the East Meets West Hunt podcast. And as he already kind of introduced himself, I'm here with my cousin, Mason Martonik, and one of my good friends, Michael Paladino. What's going on, gentlemen?
Oh, just hanging out.
What's up?
Getting ready for the first day.
Yep, getting ready for the first day of rifle season tomorrow in Pennsylvania. And sitting down here in my basement, a little bit later start than we'd like, is we're going to have to get up here in about 5 hours, but that's kind of the way we've done the first day rifle for quite a few years, I guess.
Should we say why we got a half an hour late start on this?
Yeah. Mason, do you want to take over?
Yeah, these Michael and Bo here getting ready to go out for a long day's hunt tomorrow, and I'll be going into work for hopefully only an hour or two, and then my grandpa will hopefully call me to come take care of his deer. Now that he got his disability permit, he'll be shooting from his bedroom window, calling his grandchildren to come take care of his deer, hopefully first thing in the morning.
Yeah, that'd be nice. But let's start the real reason why we're starting late now that you completely redirected the podcast there.
He did that very, smooth. He didn't want to answer.
Yeah, I know. So, Michael, do you want to tell him?
So, yeah, we sat down here. Bo got us a couple cold ones just to let things flow here. And Mason decides to break his glass and spill it all over the carpet. Not even a minute into sitting down here. So, we had lost a team member here in the first beer. Broke the glass.
Yep.
I got cut real bad. No big deal.
Yeah, hopefully we won't have to sue Mason, but we'll see.
Recarpet the basement on his dime.
I know a lawyer.
Yeah, so we'll be recording here again, like I said, from the basement here of my parents' house, I guess, and we're gonna get into a few different topics here. And first of all, kind of starting out, when I first started going out west in 2016, Mason was one of the first ones that I called with my brother to go on that hunt, and I called him for a good reason, because he's too dumb to say no, and it ended up, so he ended up going out with the first trip out west. And I've talked about kind of how that trip went in the past a little bit, but then the following year, Michael and Mason went out to Colorado to hunt high country mule deer, early archery season there, and which was kind of interesting because, Michael, I mean, you're relatively new to bow hunting in the last few years, right?
Yeah, I picked up a bow more or less after college. I moved down to York, Pennsylvania, didn't have a lot to do, so I was hanging out with a couple buddies down there, and Bo, Mason, they all hunted archery, and these guys down there did. So I decided to pick it up. Didn't really know much about it, so I had to teach myself. Did a lot of hunting with Mason just in the past. A lot of turkey hunting. We didn't do a lot of deer hunting together, but spent a lot of time in the woods, and we're pretty unsuccessful hunting, so we decided, seeing we're so good in Pennsylvania, we should try out in Colorado. So it was kind of a joke, and he asked me if I wanted to go, and I said, yeah, I'd go. And he's like, we're going to be going to 12,000 feet elevation. I'm pretty familiar with the out west. I was out there for Wyoming for a while, so figured I'd give it a try. Pretty good adventure, and good way to kick off my archery hunting by going to one of the hardest places to hunt, get to the high country. It was pretty cool, though. So
yeah, so your first real bow hunt besides, did you do any bow hunting in Pennsylvania before that?
Yeah, I spent a season in Maryland. I saw a lot of deer, spent 2 or 3 days in Pennsylvania because I didn't get a lot of time to sneak up home to hunt, but spent a lot of time in Maryland. And my first real true week of hunting was with Mason at 12,000 feet. I never actually spent a week of hunting in my life.
And actually spent 2 weeks.
16 days, yeah.
Yeah.
So Mason was a mastermind behind that.
Yeah, first hunt out west, basically somewhat new to bow hunting, and you go on a 16-day backcountry hunt do-it-yourself backpack
Yeah.
hunt for mule
And
deer
filled
and
both
elk.
his tags.
Yeah, somehow got lucky, but you're kind of skipping the whole part of Mason doing a lot of planning because I didn't hunt, so I had to learn everything. And so Mason was doing a lot of the scouting. He knew what he wanted to hunt, where he wanted to hunt, so did a lot of hanging out and trying to figure out where we wanted to go. I think he ended up picking the unit and did a lot of scouting, and he said, get ready, it's going to be tough. So a lot of training.
Yeah. Mason, what made you decide to want to do mule deer after going for a year of elk?
To be honest with you, mostly watching high country mule deer videos on YouTube. So I was definitely into the idea of being able to spot your game from a long distance and then being able to sneak up on them and make a stalk and kind of have a one-on-one with the animals.
Yeah.
In there.
Yeah. That was I'm sure interesting because in Pennsylvania, the way we're hunting deer and stuff, you're not spot and stalking whatsoever because it's thick country and it's not, you can't see more than 100 yards in most places, let alone the distances that you guys were glassing up deer and stuff out there. So it's just something kind of like you said, from watching YouTube videos and stuff, you wanted to give a shot.
Right, definitely. Seems like hunting Pennsylvania is more of a mental challenge where you're sitting in a tree stand and it's a matter of whether you see your deer could walk 100 yards from you and you don't see it and you feel like you're completely out of the game when really you're actually very close.
Yeah.
Where you go high country mule deer, you can see them from far away and it's a completely different challenge with playing the wind and sneaking in there without being seen. It's incredibly different and I really like that style of hunting.
One thing he said there is, in Pennsylvania, you're 100 yards from the deer. You don't know you're 100 yards from the deer, and you feel like you're out of the game. We're out there, you're miles from the deer, and you're seeing them, and you feel like you're out of the game. You see them, but you're like, that's an impossible stalk. Where in Pennsylvania, it's the exact opposite. They're so close to you, yet you never know it. Mm-hmm. So you're like, it's just a completely different world. The way he sold it to me, he was sent me a couple videos. He's like, check this out. And just the high country is pretty intriguing. And then to sit there and think that you can hang out, sitting there with your buddy, talking, looking through the glass and spotting scopes all day, and glass up a big buck, and it's go time. That was pretty intriguing. I thought that was going to be a great first hunt out west, and I don't know how much you had to twist my arm to go out there, but
wasn't much.
It sounded pretty exciting. So I figured I'd go for it.
Yeah, and so like I kind of alluded to earlier, Mason went out with me and Kurt the previous year, and we were hunting elk at a little bit higher elevation than you typically hunt elk, and kind of dabbled in the high country. We didn't go up there a whole lot the first year, but I know all of us were kind of like consumed by the thought of just being up above tree line at that kind of the height of elevation and everything to be able to attempt to put stock on game. And I think our first year, did we even see any mule deer up there?
I don't think so, no.
No, we didn't. And so you just decided to give it a shot and go and kind of pick a random unit and see what happens. So when you're going to kind of, pick a unit or do whatever, what was your reasoning behind the unit you picked? I mean, obviously we're not going to talk about the unit, but as far as like what made you decide that?
We don't tell what unit we're in.
No.
You guys can get a hold of me, I'll tell you.
It's mainly between just looking on like the Go Hunt filtering system and then reading on forums and looking at nearby units and different success rates and trophy qualities and record books. And
one good tool there is on Google Earth. I know everybody uses it, but just scrolling back through the years to see, try to find a year that has pictures from when you're going to be there. A lot of the pictures are spring and fall because it's easier to take pictures, but you can find pictures from August, and that's a good helpful thing to find because you want to know what the high country's like. If the high country's burn out in 2016 in August, chances are if it's the same type of summer in 2018, that August is going to be burnt out. So going back through that year slider is a pretty good tool to have.
Oh, for sure. That's a great point because for a while I was looking at the unit that we went to. I was looking at the one specific basin. I was like, man, this basin is going to be muddy. This is a perfect basin for high country mule deer. And I was looking at it, looking at different ways we're going to access it, where we're going to camp to glass this basin. And then the map I was looking at is from like October, and there's some snow in the basin. And then I went back and I looked at a map from August or September, and it turned out that basin I've been glassing thinking is going to be the best basin in the whole world turned out to be nothing but a giant rock slide.
Yeah.
Basically nothing but marmots were going to live there. So
with that unit, when we went out there, we were, I'm going to kind of jump ahead a little bit, but kind of get on that same note of scouting. We're heading up, and we picked this unit, and we had a primary basin, a backup basin, and then honestly kind of like, well, if it doesn't turn out, this is where we're going plan. Kind of just your Hail Mary at the end of the not really the end of the
Your
trip.
A, B, and C kind of.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call it C, though, because we had A and B, and if it didn't work, let's go figure it out. But in this region,
Yeah.
it wasn't a true plan. So, but our A plan was quite a hike back, and we got back there, and Mason's like, this is where we're gonna camp. This is where I want to glass, and we changed it up a little bit because you got to while you're out there. But it was pretty impressive. All of our scouting that we did, and he literally had the group of trees picked out that we'd see our big bucks in, and we set up in a different spot than we wanted to, but we couldn't see that spot real well. And no joke, the first sit we sat, we saw 3 big mule deer bucks, and we just looked at each other. It was before the season started, and I don't know if it was more exciting that we saw big mule deer bucks or we saw big mule deer bucks exactly where we thought we'd see them.
Yeah.
So that was just like, wow, that really worked. And that was
what, in end of August you went out there, right?
Yeah, that was this opening Saturday. I don't remember the exact date, but it might have been the 25th, 26th range. And we were out there Thursday, Friday before the season. And then Saturday morning, the season opened up. We saw those same bucks, and it was go time. And it was pretty darn cool to be like, hey, this is probably where we're going to see bucks. This is probably where we're going to be bedding. And let's set up to see it.
Before we get into that, let's talk about how you guys got your gear back in there.
Oh, my goodness. Or how we didn't get it in.
Yeah.
I'm almost embarrassed. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, I'm glad to see that Remy Warren just did this, so I know we weren't the only idiots that thought it was a good idea. I'm not calling him an idiot by any means, but I'm so glad that I saw somebody else make this almost mistake. So we decided, Pennsylvania hunters, how do you get your deer out of the woods? Oh, you go get this deer cart. Strap that thing to the deer cart. That deer cart, you can take it anywhere. Up, down mountains, doesn't matter. Across rivers, creeks, doesn't matter. That deer cart's going. So we're like, oh, yeah, we can get up there. It says no bikes on a trail. It doesn't say anything about deer carts. Like, there is no land management unit that specifically rules out deer carts. Probably because the people that made those rules used it once and realized how stupid it is. So we strap all of our gear to it. We look like a homeless crew heading out in the woods with all of our belongings on this 2-wheeled game cart, bungee cords and this and that and rope and paracord, wrapping it all up. We made it maybe 500, 600 yards down to that gut.
No, not even.
Yeah, and our bag blew apart. We lost half our gear. And we got maybe 4 miles left, maybe more.
The rest of the trip, someone was following the deer cart picking up gear as we were cruising along.
So the whole way up, we got a guy puller and the guy in the back picking up the gear we lost. The whole way out, got set up, threw the deer cart in a tree. We both said to ourselves, never again. I could carry 100 pounds on my back way easier than taking a 30-pound pack and 100 pounds on a deer cart. It was not a good idea. I mean, it didn't make our lives any easier. It was very stressful, and it was hilarious, though, because we looked like quite the pair. I'm glad nobody saw us.
Well, I'm sure that was good. All right, let's fast forward back to where you guys got set up. You got all your gear in, and you dumped the deer cart. And you said you saw these big deer, and I know one of them was really near and dear to Mason's heart.
Nah,
Right? Yeah.
he still has dreams of it.
What would you call that deer?
Call them stickers because he had stickers on stickers on stickers. It was unreal.
Being Pennsylvania hunters, we got to name our deer, right?
Yeah.
So we get out there, and we see this mule deer, and Mason's about passing out behind the spot and scope. He's shaking. He shakes like I do in archery season. He's flipping out. So I'm like, what are you looking at, dude? So I get through the spot and scope. I'm like, oh my goodness. Here, I wasn't even looking at the one he was telling me about. I was looking at the monster 3x4 that he was with. And I get on stickers, and he's flipping. I'm like, that is a big mule deer. I mean, I don't even know. Mason spent hours looking at the spot and scope, so he can say how big it truthfully was. I saw it a couple times, and it was impressive. So that was Mason's deer, and I told him, go after it. Anything it takes, go get it.
Yeah. Basically, this deer, I'm not going to give it a score just because I have absolutely no idea, but it had splits on its splits and stickers off its stickers. It is just unbelievable deer, and we watched it for a while and pretty much watched them bed down, and it definitely wasn't their permanent bed for the day. It was I think it was like a staging bed where they're going to just rest for a while and maybe cruise back to their primary bed. And Michael and I were so pumped up. I told Michael, hurry up and go stalk it, and he said, no, you saw it, you go get it. So I didn't argue with him at all, and I took off after him.
He literally had his gear off as I was saying no, like gone. I was like, okay, all right.
I was so ready to stalk these bucks.
Yeah, and it was his spot. He picked a spot. He said this is where they're going to be. They were there, and there's no way in heck I was going to put a stock on that. And I was like, go, dude, that's yours. Get it. So I was watching, and it was pretty cool to see him sneaking around. I didn't see him sneak too much, but I was keeping an eye on the mule deer, and I had a pretty good idea where Mason was. And I knew how pumped he was when he left. I figured he was going down, but so you can tell how he got into it.
Based on my reactions when I saw this deer, I figured if I did get within bow range, there's no way I was going to be able to come back to full draw. I'd be shaking so bad, but somehow I managed to get within bow range of these bucks, and I'm cruising right in where, well, first of all, the terrain looks completely different once you stalk in. So if you're looking at them from a distance, once you loop around, you stalk in on them, it's like you almost have the terrain that we were in. You almost had no idea because of the way the trees were and the different rock slides. I ended up cruising down the wrong rock slide, first of all. Realized that, turned around, went back up, and realized I walked right by the bucks to begin with. Got back up close to the bucks, and there's a lot of pine cones that were real crunchy, and I was sneaking in on them, trying to be as quiet as I could. I dumped my boots prematurely, about 400 yards too soon. And so I'm sneaking in, trying to be as quiet as I can. I look down, try not to step on pine cones, and I hear something running right by me. I look up, I think it's the bucks. I go to come back at full draw, and it's a fox. Red fox cruising right by me. And I was like, oh, I was about had a heart attack. So I kept cruising in, and then I heard another stick snap, and I was like, that's got to be the bucks. So I got ready, and by that time, they probably watched me sneak in on them. Or first time pretty much stalking any game in my life, to be honest with you. And so I don't know if they saw me or if they smelled me. I thought I had a good wind, so I'm thinking they saw me. And I heard a stick snap, and I saw them jump out across an opening, and I came back to full draw. They're at, 65, 70 yards, and they never stopped my opening, and they jumped right through. But just seeing two mule deer that magnitude for the first time in my life, that close, was something
that hooked
unique.
I know that night, we saw mule deer the whole rest of the day. All you heard about was the view of, I think at that time the 5x4 was there.
Right.
I think it was a 5x4 and stickers were ran off.
You had photos of that one, didn't you, or one of the deer?
We had the 5x4 and the 3x4. We didn't get any pictures of the stickers because honestly, the first 2 or 3 days of hunting, we didn't even think about taking a picture through the spot and scope. And never even really we said, we weren't worried about taking pictures, and looking back, it probably wasn't.
Yeah, I kind of had in my mind that we were gonna have more opportunities on these deer, which we did on the 3x4 and the 5x4. But stickers, that was we never saw them after.
Yeah, you did. You had one more chance at them at 110.
Oh yeah, that night, right at last light.
Yeah.
But after the first day, we never saw stickers again.
Yeah, he didn't get that big by hanging around where people were pushing on him. That's for sure. Yeah. But I was sitting down in a valley, more Pennsylvania style hunting, just kind of hanging out, chilling on the end where I knew deer were coming through from watching for 2 days. And I came back up, and we heard bugling down at the bottom. So I figured Mason went and chased them.
We had elk tags at the time.
Yeah, we had elk tags. So I figured Mason was chasing them. So when I got back to the tent, I truthfully really wasn't expecting to see him for a couple hours because I know how tough it is to get down in that bottom. Well, I didn't know how tough. I saw how tough it was. And when I saw him back at the camp, I'm like, dude, he's like, "You hear them bugle?" I was like, "Yeah." I kind of joked around, and he's like, "Well, I saw stickers," and he told me where he saw them, and I knew where he was sitting. I was like, "Man," he's like, "I was just one bluff too far, maybe not bluff, but one rock slide too far to get a stalk or anything." So it was pretty cool. Went to bed pretty excited, and kept chasing that 5x4 and 3x4. I mean, we spent 9 days chasing them.
Well, that after that first night, I had that failed stalk on stickers and the other bucks. And then right last night, I heard those bugles and I actually glassed that bull down on the bottom. And it was I don't know if it was a 5x5 or 6x6, but it was a pretty big frame elk, like bigger than you'd almost expect on an over-the-counter unit. And it was right last night. I said the hell with it. I think I'm going to go after this, and big deal if I have to walk all the way back up here with my flashlight for a failed stalk. I knew it was pretty low percentage whether I'd get on it in time before dark. And as soon as I dropped my pack and dropped my gear and an extra layer, I started tearing down after it, and I looked up, and that 100 yards away is when I saw those three big bucks with stickers and the other 2 bucks, and they were cruising up right behind me, just a little bit out of range, So we get back to the tent that night. I meet up with Michael. I tell him about it, and I'm just ecstatic about even seeing deer of this caliber. I don't think either of us expected that.
No, I remember when we were sitting in the tent that Thursday night, we were talking about what we were going to see, and our goal bucks were well below what we were seeing. Even that 3x4, that 3x4 is so impressive. I mean, that 3x4 points-wise was a small buck, but just tine length was just insane. I mean, that 3x4 had tine length that was just insane. So we really changed our game plan on what we were going to be shooting at. We were out there maybe trying to just shoot anything legal that was anything that was a buck, and we quickly changed our mind that we're in a good spot. Let's hunt hard. So we changed our game plan and started hunting different area, and not different area, but glassing from a different area, and put ourselves in a spot to try to kill a big muley. So it's pretty cool.
Fast forward 8 hours later, Michael shoots a cow elk.
Yeah, I shoot a cow elk. It didn't really happen the way I'd ever expect to shoot a cow elk, but it was
epic to say the least.
Yeah, I was just about to put on different pants to go stalk this 5x4 muley that we watched all day, and I had more rain pants on because it was pretty wet ground that day. I can't remember why. I don't know if it rained or what, but so I was changing my clothes and getting ready. And all morning, maybe not all morning, but for an hour, we were talking about how we kept hearing something behind us. And we both kind of really played it off because we were sitting there chilling, hanging out, talking to each other, eating breakfast, cooking. We're spotting mule deer that are maybe, I don't even know, 1,000 yards, 2,000 yards. I don't even know how far, but not a mile, but a good long ways away. So we had no worries about them knowing we're there. And I'm changing my clothes. I don't even have my release on, nothing. And I see movement through the woods. I was like, "Mason, there's an elk." And I'm whispering to him. I was like, "Dude, throw me your rangefinder." So he throws me his rangefinder. I throw my release on. And the elk was cutting across the top hill in front, over top of us and going down to this real steep drainage. I'm like, heck with that. It's not going down there. So I tried cutting it off. And I was literally, Mason was laughing, but I was literally cruising down this ridge line, kind of not really running, but kind of hunched low and tried cutting it off. And I ranged where the elk was coming out, and it said 72. Ranged it again, it said 22. Ranged it again. I'm like, heck with this thing.
Spikes my rangefinder on the ground.
On the rangefinder. Not my equipment, not my problem. Threw it on the ground.
Skipping across the rocks.
One full draw, and I'm like, I think it's 40. I have no idea, but I'm literally shooting through a car window so I can make it work and just let it rip. And I watched it sail. It looked like it was perfect, and I thought I hit way too low. I thought I even missed it at one point, and my gut was instantly dropped. But then I turn and look at Mason, and Mason's big eyes, kind of give me a fist pump, and I celebrate. I'm like, I must have hit this thing if Mason looked like that, because I didn't quite really know. I had a pretty good feeling. I knew it was flying left and right as perfect as it could, and then we range found it, and it was a little bit over 50 yards, I think, so I guess about 10 yards too low. But I was pretty familiar with the bow I was shooting, so I did a lot of practice with it, so I wasn't too worried about 40 yards. I knew I was going to be good, and that cow elk only went 50 yards maybe, I think.
Not even.
Yeah.
And backpedal a little bit. Michael's one person that, no matter what the situation is, Michael's usually calm, cool, and collective. And at this point, I've never seen Michael act like this in my life. He's just absolutely losing his mind.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, there's still these, we're out in the open now, and these 2 mega giant mule deer are out in the wide open. They can probably see us jumping around. So I'm trying to kind of keep Michael half calm. And
I'm
then I'm trying to calm Michael down, and I hear the elk fall over. And I'm like, and Michael had no idea yet, so I kind of knew, but I didn't want to get his hopes up just in case. But
I had no clue after I shot and I saw Mason's face, and I kind of knew I probably got a good shot on him, but good enough. I just was pumped. I came over, I ran across the hill, and I was hugging him. I just like, heck yeah, I just shot an elk. He's like, dude, this is awesome, and we were pumped. And granted, it's only a cow elk, but it's my first bow kill.
Oh, both of us are super.
Yeah, my first bow kill is an elk in Colorado, and we were sitting at like 11.5.
Yep.
Chilling, hanging out. Like, I have my cook stuff sitting out. I'm like Pop-Tart wrapper sitting there. Like, I'm pretty sure I had, when I shot this elk, I'm pretty sure I was wearing my long johns. Like, I didn't even have pants on, I'm pretty sure, when I shot this thing. I can't quite 100% remember, but I know I was changing. So it wasn't the ideal situation where you think, like, all this gear, all this preparation. I remember that's just, took the opportunity that it was presented. And I've never been around an elk at 40 yards, so I wasn't really sure how big it was. I was like, man, I hope I didn't just shoot like a little cow, but I knew it was a good-sized cow. And when we got up to it, this thing was, it was way too big.
It was a beast, and from where he shot to where it died, it was maybe 25, 30 yards. That was it.
And it was a highway of blood.
When he shot it, it was facing like it was ready to go over an enormous cliff. Luckily, it turned around and went back uphill. It fell over.
If it would have went over that rock slide, I wouldn't even be here right now.
Oh my gosh.
It was bad, but it was pretty cool. I wasn't too worried about it when I shot.
What was it like when you walked up to it? And one, saw the size of it, and then 2, never, gutless method an elk or any animal in your life before. What did you expect kind of when you first saw it?
Well, Mason and I kind of just looked at each other, and we were pretty pumped, and we were so excited that I don't think it really even mattered to us. To be honest, I don't think we didn't really care. At least I didn't really care about the amount of work. I knew how much work I was going to have. I knew Mason was like all for it, and we split up the tasks and we worked together. And he said, hey, let's do it this way. And we skinned it together. And then I cut the front shoulder off, and we knew we wanted to debone it. So he's like, I'll debone if you want to just keep going. So he deboned the front shoulder, and I got the back leg off. And when he was done deboning, I handed the back leg, and we just worked through it, then we flipped that baby over, and that was a task. That's a big elk to roll over, and definitely did some damage on the tenderloins. I think we may have. There's a lot of tenderloins still up on that mountain somewhere. We didn't do a real good job taking those out.
I think we definitely got all of it, but it looked like spaghetti when we pulled it out for sure. Didn't do the best job, but we took it to the cooler.
Yeah.
That next morning, and you could tell that they were they didn't see it that next morning. We told them about it, and you could tell they
wasn't impressed.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I told them we never did a gutless method, and nothing against the gutless method. I absolutely love it, and I'll probably do it tomorrow if my girlfriend shoots a deer. But you definitely gotta take your time when you're pulling those tenderloins out with the guts in there, because you don't got a lot of room, and you got to make it work. No ripping, no tearing, but it was cool. Took it to the butcher. It took us 12 hours from the shot till we got to the truck. A lot of effort. Probably the worst I've ever felt in my life, but the best I ever felt in my life.
Oh, for sure.
I know when I looked at Mason, he asked me, he goes, is this the hardest thing you ever did? And I said, oh my goodness, by far. I've lost 12, 13 pounds, in a night for wrestling to make weight. And, that was easier than doing this, pulling this elk out of that mountain. I mean, down through two valleys and to the truck. We were probably 200 yards from the truck, and we met a cool guy there, and we were really hoping he's going to help us out. And he just walked alongside of us as we literally died going the steepest part. Maybe not the steepest, but one of the steepest parts.
Yeah.
And he walked alongside of us talking. But he did lend us the beds and shower and some beers and food. But by the time we got to the truck, we were just like, let's go down to the city, and dropped him off and got back up there the next day and kept hunting. Pretty cool experience.
Was that when you got sick?
Mason You got sick the first day?
Oh,
and
yeah.
I got sick on Sunday.
I got sick on breakfast skillets the first day.
Yeah, breakfast skillets. I can't even remember. I think I had breakfast skillets that morning, but I remember specifically, I'll never in my life ever have another egg meal. I don't care who makes it, how they make it, whatever it is. I'll never have another egg meal that's dehydrated. They make me sick thinking about them. They're just not for me. We even packed in, this is kind of interesting, but we packed in our hot sauce to make these better. And a fox stole our hot sauce. We didn't even get to use it, so we had to choke
very
down
first night.
Our very first night, some animal of I want to say it's a fox. I don't really know.
Furry animal.
It could have been. Yeah, could have been. I mean, heck, it could have been one of those like little gerbil things that we saw.
The marmots?
Oh, even smaller. I don't even know. It wasn't even a marmot.
I don't know what they were, but I think it was a fox or something bigger. We also saw so many bears on this trip. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, but yeah, that little rascal stole our hot sauce, so we had to go back to choking breakfast skillets down. But yeah, I got sick pulling the elk out. We were carrying front shoulders out and back straps. No, I take that back. We were carrying hind quarter and back straps out on our first trip out to our camp. We took 2 trips to the camp because it was a lot of blowdowns, a lot of tough hiking. And I was getting real sick on the way up, throwing up, just having some trouble because I pushed myself pretty hard to get that elk out to where we were.
Yeah, we even cooked up fresh the good tenderloin that we didn't turn into spaghetti strings on the fire, trying to get you fueled up. And
then so Mason had to go be my pack mule, and he went back in and took the rest of the elk out on his trip. We met up at the camp there, and I felt a lot better after that. And we loaded up and took it out in one trip. I had a couple challenges on the way out, but we made it. I think we ended up packing the elk for 10 hours, I think, total. I think it was on our back, more or less, pulling it for 10 hours.
You shot it. It was down before 9:30 in the morning. We didn't get the truck until it was after 9:30 at night.
Yeah.
And we still had a long drive into town.
Yeah, we didn't get into town, and we threw it on some ice. I know we laid down at like 1:30, 2 in the morning. Got up at 6 or so to the butcher at 7, back up on the mountain by 9, and back hunting again by 10:30, 11. We were keeping busy, but
I just want to put some emphasis on if you're hunting probably most of the western states for the trails or anything that's like really rocky, do not use a deer cart.
Most definitely not.
I would much rather make 2 trips with it on my back than do 1 trip with a deer cart and a little bit on your back.
Did you put it on the deer cart to go out to meet then?
We tried.
Yeah. It was.
We lost. Mason had to go back about almost a mile uphill
I
to go
forgot all
get.
about that. We
We lost a whole entire bag of hind quarter. We lost a whole hind quarter. We didn't know where we lost it, but we knew we lost it. So he went back. So he had to do a couple trips on that hind quarter. That hind quarter got some miles put on it, and by the end we were carrying it and just said how. I mean, it was just not the method of elk removal.
With that much weight, every tiny rock rips your arms out of your sockets when you're pulling it.
That too.
It wasn't a fun experience.
So is that why, like, when you're watching YouTube videos and stuff, you're not seeing a whole lot of deer carts in them?
That's probably it.
We thought we were doing something, we're going to do the latest, greatest. People are going to be looking at us for information. I can't say we didn't really ever care or anything like that, but we're like, you know what, we're doing something that no one's done before, and we're going to have this idea. We're not going to tell anybody about it, but this is how we're getting farther than anybody else. And that is not the truth at all. That was definitely the worst decision of our. We made some mistakes, made some good mistakes, learned some stuff, but I definitely learned a deer cart is never going out west with me ever again. So that was pretty cool, though.
So how about the rest of the trip then? So did you get back on to any of those mule deer that you had seen earlier in the trip or anything?
Yeah, I think we hunted them for 5 more days, pretty hard. And then we kind of blew out that basin pretty bad.
Well,
Mason can tell us.
Yeah, we made some mistakes there where it was mostly our inexperience in the high country where it kind of bit us there, where we basically got back on these bucks. We didn't see stickers again, but we saw the other 2 bucks, the big 3x4 and the 4x5, and we were kind of glassing them almost in the same spot every day, and we kind of learned that they almost had a routine where they were feeding up in the very tops of the mountains in the high country and then cruising down onto this one I don't know what you call it, an avalanche slide or whatever it was, where it's kind of a grassy.
It was almost a grassy point between avalanche slides with some cover.
It's kind of a unique spot,
Yeah.
but it's like perfect bedding area. And we started learning this, and then one day we decided I was going to go in there, and there's one pinch point where they'd walk through every morning that we watched them, and I was going to get there and beat them to the spot and wait until they walked by me and shoot them and have the right wind and everything was playing out right. And the one morning I did that, I walked down there, and it was basically a walk through a blow-down forest, which turned into be a pretty miserable event, and walked across there and got on some elk, could have shot some cow elk, and then went a little bit further and almost got a shot at what I thought was the 2 bucks we glassed up, and it ended up being a different 2 bucks. And I got on them, came full draw on them. Again, they never stopped in my opening, and this is down in the thick timber. And so, thinking it was the bucks that I originally went over there for, I came back to the glassing point, met Michael, and Michael was watching the whole time. He's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I was like, dude, they're laying right there. I'm like, man, what happened? So he's telling me this. I'm like, did you go back again? Or no, we called it quits that day.
Yeah, we decided.
That was one of the mistakes, I would say, probably.
Yeah, one of many.
We said that one mistake, because Mason just did this miserable climb, and I'm still glassing these bucks up. They're still laying in the exact same beds we saw them in the day before, and we knew they did the day before, but we decided, let's let them be there today. We just blew the bottom out. Let's go back, and let's go try to find some different concrete.
That was against my better judgment there, because I was thinking the next morning we'll just get back on the same pinch point and have the same plan and do it again. And so Mike wanted me to stalk back in on him, and I wanted to try and get back in that pinch point. We ended up agreeing to go back and try that pinch point again the next morning. Well, we hunted the afternoon. I think maybe you saw cow elk, and
I saw muley doe, and I had a fox that I could have petted.
You had that fox that about attacked you.
Yeah, I thought it was going to. And in the midst of this fox, what I really, truthfully, really believed was going to try to attack me, I ended up finding a little elk shed, a little 2-point elk shed. And this fox was like false charging me. I'm like, you're 25 pounds. I'm going to kill you. Like,
it's about kicking it.
Yeah, so I was winding up to kick this thing. I would never want to kick an animal. Like, those fox out there, they're so colorful, and they're such cool animals. But this thing kept messing with me, and I'm in a perfect spot to kill a big mule deer. And it had to get. And it realized probably wasn't a good idea to hang around, so he scurried off. But in the midst of that, I found a nice little elk shed. But yeah, so came back, and not real eventful, but the next day, Mason, we were pretty sure. So I said, Mason, get ready. You're going. First thing in the morning, get ready.
So that next morning, I basically same plan again. I hike over there, make the death march, climb back up to where that pinch point is, and on my way up there, the bucks ended up being like an hour ahead of schedule.
Yeah, they beat you
way before I got to the pinch point, and they got through the pinch point before I even got up there. And I think a little tiny black bear, or
like a 20 or 30 pound black bear, like a tiny cub. Maybe it's like 50 pounds, but a tiny cub was out in that grassy meadow down there. And the bucks were there an hour early, and they never actually went into the grassy meadow. And I'm trying to give Mason hand signals like, dude, you're late, but yet they're still in there somewhere. I just don't know where. And I didn't see him that well, and it just didn't turn out.
Yeah. Actually, I think we got these 2 days mixed up. So that happened the first time I tried to get to the pinch point, and the second time was when I jumped the other 2 bucks, and I thought they were the bucks we were stalking.
Yeah.
And then I came back, and Mike wanted me to stalk them, and I didn't do it, and that ended up being the last time we saw them then.
Yeah, that was the last day we saw those deer.
And then the next few days, all we saw was bears. Bears were the main story there.
Big bears, colorful bears.
Big bears, little bears, brown bears, blue bears.
Yeah, I don't know about blue. we were watching these bears.
He must have been eating too much breakfast skillet at that point. He started seeing blue bears.
He was hitting those skillets too hard. But we saw, we were watching these black bear, and we saw this black bear just hauling across this hillside, running as fast as a black bear could run. and it looks like groundhogs running. They're just whole bodies rolling, and
These bears were hysterical.
And we're just like, what in the world is this thing doing? And this bear just runs and slides into this big huckleberry bush, and just gorges himself. And he's laying there just taking armfuls, and we're laughing. We're like, that bear just literally ran 30 miles an hour across this hillside to get to the next bush of berries. So we were laughing. That was pretty cool, but came back to the truck then and switched up the game plan to a little truck tent hunting. And
put it in perspective how many bears we started seeing. Is like, it must have been these berries were just getting ripe when we were out there.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the last mornings we were in that basin, I stood in one glassing spot, and I could see like 6 or 7 bears at one time from one spot, just glassing this basin. And Michael also saw a number of bears, and some of them were the same bears, some of them were different bears. Mm-hmm. Just unbelievable.
That must have been a really good year from, like, I think they got a lot of rain and everything. The berries must have been perfect because while you guys were out there, we were, in another adjoining unit, and we're seeing bears like crazy like that too, all feeding up in the high country. So that was definitely a good year for bears.
Pretty cool to see them. They're big animals.
Yeah.
They move across those hillsides pretty well, and they eat all day long. They really don't have any other cares but to eat.
They're so obsessed with eating it. I feel like if we had a bear tag, both of us, I think, easily could have tagged out that year.
No, because if you would have had a bear tag, what happened to me this year.
You probably wouldn't have seen them, yeah.
I see 17 bear the year I don't have a bear tag, and then I go out with a bear tag, and there's not a bear in the country.
See, that's your style of luck. My style of luck is I see them, I just can never draw back on them to shoot them. I have this blackout moment, so I probably would have saw them. I just would never got a shot on them. But oh well, they're so cool to see. Mason had a pretty good encounter with one. Then we went truck camping. One was that the one that was popping his jaw at you?
I had 2 pretty hairy bear encounters within about 5 minutes of each other.
Yeah.
So was that before or after you killed your mule deer?
Before. Okay,
so I was carrying pepper spray, not necessarily bear spray, but pepper spray, so they have to be a little closer before I can really hose them down. So this whole trip I have this pepper spray, and the only time the entire trip I don't have it, I have the closest encounter, probably one of my hairiest encounters of my life with a bear. It's still a black bear, it's not like it's grizzly or anything, but
harmless.
I was walking through some real high grass, and I'm walking, and then all of a sudden there's bear shit all over the place, and there's these berry bushes I know they're feeding on all around me. I'm like, I can see like 10 yards. I'm like, I'm about to have a bad encounter with the bear here. And I go about another 10 feet. I can see a giant brown blocky head and little tiny ears and beady eyes staring at me. And I'm like, son of a gun, I'm roasted. So me and this bear are having to stare down, and I'm like, knock my release just for self-defense since I don't have a pistol or my pepper spray or anything. And I was like, oh, he's either gonna run or he's gonna kill me. So here we go. Take one step towards him, and luckily he takes off running. And this is like maybe 12 to 15 foot encounter, and he takes off running, luckily, which is kind of what I expected. And he goes in the super dark timber, and this is right before dark. I was like, oh, that's good. That's right where I have to walk. So I go walking right past him, make it through the dark timber, and I hit another open area, which is pretty much the same with, like, it's like an open meadow, but it's really high grass and berries. And I'm walking, and I'm almost on the home stretch back to the tent for that night, and see another bear. I was like, oh, God, here we go again, right where I have to walk. And now it's like 80 yards away. It's pretty much dark. I just want to get back to the tent, and I'm like, get out of here, bear. So I was basically trying to shoot away, and instead this bear just stands up on his hind legs and decides to bluff charge me. Yeah. And it's flying right at me, and I get my release on my bow. I'm like, I don't know what this is going to do, but here goes nothing. And it stops like 20 yards from me, and then turns around and takes off. And head back to the tent. And then the next day, Michael has a pretty cool experience with some mule deer.
Yeah, so we hunted that day in a completely different area. And I was traveling down this one rock side that made a real cool little pinch point. And I was like, man, it's looking like there's a lot of deer sign here. And I just felt like it was a good spot. So I posted up in this, there's a pine row, and it was younger pines, and it was right on the edge of this grassy field. And it was right on this pinch point. I just felt like it was in a good spot. And as that story, you know, you're always like, oh, it's a good spot, and it never turns anything out. But so I get myself ready, and not even maybe half hour, I don't know, I see some movement coming up through, and it wasn't really coming towards my direction. So I hurry up and shuffle over to the next pine row over, which is actually a little bit farther down. And I get to where I feel is a great spot, but I lost the sight of the elk or the mule deer. And a couple minutes later, the mule deer are coming up. One of them's coming up over the hill, and it sees me, which I think it sees me, and it's staring at me for a while. And there's a spike, and it ended up just coming back up and feeding through. And then there's 2 doe that were with it, were feeding through. And I was debating on myself, you know, it's the last night. No, it was the second to last night, and we're leaving the next day. So I'm shooting one of these because the tag, you know, anything goes.
Right.
So I'm debating. I'm like, do I, don't I? But I'm videoing all these mule deer with my cell phone, just kind of, you know, zooming in on them, hanging out, and trying to decide if I'm going to shoot one or not. And I mean, these mule deer are like 12 yards, but the wind's perfect. I mean, the wind was just absolutely perfect. And I decided I wasn't going to, but I just, for some reason, I thought I heard something behind me. So I just look over my shoulder, and I saw horns. Didn't really see how big. Didn't really care, to be honest. Throw my cell phone in my pocket, put my release on, and where the mule deer was, I was in this pine row. So I had to step out from the pine row, which put me at like less than 10 yards on the spike in the doe, but like 20 yards from where the mule deer buck was. And it was my only option. I had no other options. Getting right close to dark. So I knocked my release, and I draw back. So I was drawn back ready, and I was pointing at the ground. So as soon as I came out, I just hold on them. And I'm trying to look down my peep sight, and I cannot figure out, like, this is happening like quick, instant. So I'm full drawing this muley. I can't figure out why I can't see my peep sight through my housing. I was just a mess. I was shaking so bad. I couldn't figure anything out. Here, I'm shooting right-handed, trying to use my left eye, looking through my peep sight. So my head's cocked over the string. I was all tangled up, and this isn't my first day shooting. I don't know what I was doing. I just have this blackout moment. And I finally get myself organized enough, which is this is real quick. I just put it right, he's quartering to me, and I just hold right off the front side of his chest and let it rip. I knew I made a great shot just because I heard him exhale. I just heard him do that, like, lung shot exhale, the
death groan.
Yeah, kind of. It was just an interesting sound, and it was my first real close on the ground. So I back out. Didn't mark my spot like a rookie. Back out, go get Mason. Mason comes over, and I just give him a fist pump. He's like, "Did you get one?" I was like, "Dude, I smoked a muley." I was like, "I don't even know how big. Don't really care. I think it's 3. I said, I think it's 3x3. Might be 3x4. I don't know." So we went and tried to find blood, and I had no clue where I was. Zero. I knew the rock slide I was on, and I knew the pinch point I was on, but I could not find the trees I was in. So I looked on my phone, which I was taking pictures on, so I used GPS coordinates to find where I was at. So I took my GPS coordinates off that picture, found where we were, and it was just too dark. It was super dark. There's no moon. The full moon just was the week before. So we went back. It was 30 degrees. I think it was going to get down to like 15. So we went back, got up first light, went to go get my mule deer, found exactly where I hit it, tracked it for probably 200 yards or so downhill.
If that, yeah.
And we lost some blood. So I was like, man, we lost blood. So we're looping around kind of a little bit. I was like, hey, I found my mule deer. And he's like, what? I was like, dude, it's right there.
No, it's how we found it because you saw that bear.
Yeah. I was like, right there. He goes, where? How do you know? I was like, because there's a brown black bear right on it. He's like, what are we going to do? I think I just took off. I just like, I'm getting my mule deer.
This black bear reminded me of like an extremely obese bulldog. The way the fat rolls were on it when it was running away when he chased it off that deer.
So
that's pretty comical.
Yeah, it was just this. I kept calling like groundhogs, running like groundhogs because they just get these big rolls going. And so I chased it off my mule deer. And at this point, this bear is pretty sure he killed this mule deer. It's his mule deer, but I didn't give a crap. So we're sitting there maybe like 20 minutes later. I'm sitting there holding the Havlon, cutting this deer up. My bow's laying behind Mason, and this brown bear comes, black bear, but cinnamon color, comes up, and it's like looking at us. I think you saw it first, didn't you?
No, you saw it first when I was deboning.
I'm like, Mason, give me my bow. Like, I'm standing there holding a flimsy blade. Like, what am I going to do with this thing? And
Flimsy blade in the front shoulder.
Yeah, it's pretty close. So it never did come in, but it was close, and it was pretty cool. And a couple minutes later, Mason sees the 3x3 come cruising behind us.
Yeah, and by that point, it was like last couple of days of the trip.
It was like the last couple hours.
And you just shot one. I was pumped up to try and double up with you, and I took off after it.
Yeah. Emptied the quiver.
Yeah, I wish. Unfortunately, didn't get any shots off on it, but
I thought you missed.
No, not that time. The next day I missed.
Oh, okay.
But that one, I got a couple stalks on it and almost got a couple shots, but either rangefinder was catching different branches and throwing me off, but never got a shot at that mule deer. But finished getting Michael's mule deer packed up and carried it out back to camp, and we went back to our buddy Charlie Brown's campsite and celebrated a little bit and told him about the hunt. And
yeah,
Charlie Brown was the guy we saw the very first day when Michael shot his elk, and he just walked beside us and told us if he had some of his younger guys from camp to help us, he would have. But he's super nice guy. Nice to spend camp with him, and really made it a lot easier being that back in the backcountry for that long without any nice meals or.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had hot dogs on bread.
Yeah, sleeping in the dirt. Mm-hmm. So we got a nice meal from Charlie Brown and some celebration beverages, and went back to camp, and I hunted that afternoon. I think I saw some deer, some does and fawns, and some more bear. And then next morning I went back out for a walk. Because now we're leaving. We're leaving at lunchtime that day. So went for a walk, and it's raining a little bit, and it's super quiet for walking. So I'm just kind of stealthing through some thick trees, and I come up, and I'm starting to get on some deer, and I'm sneaking through these little herds of deer, and I see a little buck, and I'm watching it, and kind of stalk within range, and get a range on it, and it's walking towards me now. I range maybe 35, 38 yards, and it's walking towards me, and then it comes out in an opening, and I shot for 35 yards still, and now it was at about 22 yards, so I shot right over its back, and it took off, and went down to collect my arrows, because I missed it twice, actually. And just collected my arrows and put in my quiver, and I started stealthing through I could have shot it again, actually, but by that time I was so mad that I already missed twice, I didn't care. So then I jumped the big 4x4. Oh, yeah. Again, almost didn't expect it after going so many. We went probably 8 days without seeing a real nice buck. Mm-hmm. After all the bears moved in. So I saw it jump that 4x4, but you could tell he was a smarter buck. He didn't give me any chance of a shot or anything. He took right off, and I tried to catch up with him, kind of getting some pinch points, trying to cut him off, and never saw him again. That was pretty much the end of our trip.
Yeah, so long ride home, lots of meat.
Yeah, which the mule deer and elk tasted good. We had it at camp last rifle season.
Right.
And it was extremely good and cool to have there. And that sounds just like just an epic trip from that standpoint. And just hearing the stories of the trials and tribulations of your first mule deer hunt are pretty funny.
Yeah, it was not only the first mule deer hunt. I mean, it was my first hunt. Literally, rifle hunter my whole life, and so for that was a great way to start. I mean, I'm hooked forever now on archery, and probably hooked forever on high country mule deer because of it. It was,
if you can go back,
yeah.
Which kind of leads into the next story here. What I kind of wanted to get into next.
First we got to make sure that you remember that Mason got my elk off the mountain here. So Mason's first hunt got my elk off the mountain for me. So the second hunt, Mason has saved my butt again. But
so this past year, now we're looking at 2018. You're like, we're gonna hunt high country mule deer again, and you chose New Mexico. Mm-hmm. What was your reason for choosing New Mexico versus Colorado after all the luck you had in Colorado?
It was mostly because of my work schedule this year, so I wasn't really able to go. We wanted to go opening week of Colorado high country mule deer season, and mostly because we realized the pressure or whatever it was from last year, we didn't see that many great bucks after the first week. So we wanted to be out there opening week, and I couldn't do that this year because of my work schedule. So we were looking at the schedules of different states and how it would work best for our schedules. And basically, New Mexico was the only state that really fit the bill for that year.
Yeah, I started doing a lot of research and on Go Hunt, kind of going through everything, just trying to find dates that worked for us. I was like, hey, Mason, we have some opportunities in New Mexico. Actually, Bo told us about New Mexico has some good opportunities. So I started looking. I was like, man, that could work. We could make that schedule work. It's going to be tight, but we can make it work. So then Mason and I sat down really, and we didn't really, I don't think at first we quite cared what the chances of getting the drawn in units. So we first went and found units that we thought were going to be perfect for the type of hunting we wanted to do.
And that was basically chosen just from looking on Google Earth, finding some terrain that we wanted to hunt.
And then once we found some units, the first couple units had zero opportunities for us because everybody else liked those units. And then we found one good unit that we thought was perfect. Actually, I don't even want to say we thought was perfect. It was the pristine high country that you think of when you think of high country spot stock. And
pristine was definitely the right word for that.
Yeah,
even once we were there and put boots on the ground,
it was everything we thought beautiful. It should be, and it was perfect. Like, these basins were just unreal.
So how many deer did you find?
Zero. They're pristine except for the
in the high country
counts.
Anyways.
Yeah, none in high country. It was pristine hunting. Pristine glassing. The glassing was perfect. The best glassing terrain you can get. We turned up 0 mule deer, and we did a lot of time through the scopes. So.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it was tough getting out there. It was tough. I picked Mason up in Texas. Drove the whole way down to, I don't even know, was that Amarillo, Texas or something?
That's where you picked me up.
I don't even know if Amarillo's in Texas, but I feel like that's where I picked him up at.
Yeah, George Strait wrote a song about that. It's in Texas.
Yeah, okay. So I picked him up at some podunk airport and drove out the rest of the way to New Mexico. I think he drove the rest of the way, which is 3-4 hours into where we were going, maybe 4 or 5.
6-7.
6-7. And we get there and camped and hiked in, and we were just so pumped. It looked perfect. Yeah. And Mason can go from there.
Basically, I don't know what time it was. We got up to the trailhead. It was maybe 10, 11.
Yeah.
Between 10 and 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't know, whatever it was. And we camped out right at the trailhead that night, hopefully thinking we were going to get kind of acclimated right there. As soon as we got out of the truck, I don't know about Michael, but I could tell that we were lacking some oxygen in the air at that point. And we camped out that night right at the trailhead. We woke up in the morning, packed up all our gear. And a local guy came up to the trailhead, and he stopped and he's talking to us, and he's telling us about all his mule deer and elk hunting stories from basically around the area, and it got us really pumped up.
Yeah, until his little rat dog jumped in my car and scratched up my new seats.
Right.
But he got us pumped.
Yeah, we let that slide, so he's basically telling us we're going to be seeing big bucks the whole way up the trailhead, all the way up in the high country, and that it really wasn't the case. We were hiking all the way up into the high country, and we seen minimal deer tracks going up. The closer we got to the high country, up towards the peaks of the mountains, the more elk sign we started seeing, though.
Yeah, good.
We did see some deer sign, but it was mainly elk sign. And we got up to basically where we decided we wanted to camp based on Google Maps prior to the hunt, and basically dropped our packs and walked over to the base, and we wanted to start glassing, and it's like, man, everything looks perfect, almost like how we'd expect it. And we were really pumped up about our glass and point, where camp was, and where we were going to get water and everything else. And thinking there's only one other vehicle at the trailhead, so we were like, man, this is going to be perfect, So we're set up where we basically have a couple different basins we can jump to in glass, but one specifically is the one we were focusing on. And glass that night didn't turn up a single thing, and it was kind of a little bit of a shock to us based on the year prior. It's like every time we glassed morning and night, we were seeing game, whether it was elk or sheep or mule deer or whatever. We were seeing game. So is the night before opening day, and we didn't see a thing in our entire basin. We have a giant view of it, so we were a little confused, but we still had high hopes for the morning. And opening morning, Michael wasn't feeling real well.
Yeah, no, I was a little sick. I mean, I drove more or less straight through to New Mexico for the most part, solo, and I was running off Subway. Yeah. Not the best food to be, preparing yourself and no sleep. So,
Fresh.
yeah. So
How'd that work out for Jared?
Jared, I think he's in jail.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. So right there's my little plug to my girlfriend's mom. She owns one, so right there. But
Hopefully she doesn't listen to this.
yeah, no, we'll cut that out. But yeah, so I lived off Subway and I was pretty exhausted. Then we hiked the whole way up after short night's sleep. Pretty tired. Didn't have the best off-season training going into it by any means.
Yeah, Michael had Lyme's disease and then also knee surgery that summer, so
yeah,
his time was really crunched as far as training goes.
Yeah, ACL, PCL, meniscus, and that was in March. And then I had to bust my butt. And then a month before we went out, I got Lyme disease, and I finished my Lyme disease medicine the day before I was leaving to New Mexico. So that sucked. Kind of disappointing when you put all that effort into it and get sick like that. So I get there and got worn out pretty bad hiking in, probably a little more than I should have. Probably should have taken it a little bit easy, but everything we were hearing, everything we were seeing was just perfect. So I just pushed through it and said heck with it. I probably didn't eat what I should have. I drank a lot, but I probably didn't eat what I should have. Pushed too hard, but we got there and it was great.
Drink water, let's just clarify that.
Yeah, not beer. Yeah. I wish, but nah. So yeah, we get there and everything was perfect. So, we worked hard and got there. And in Colorado, if you worked hard glass and you saw something, or in New Mexico, the harder you looked, the farther you looked, the more the more you tried to see game, nothing was turning up. We were just turning up nothing. And we went to bed that night a little bit bummed out. But the next morning, Mason got up bright and early. And I said, hey, I'm just going to kind of hang out here for about an hour. And at daylight, I'll come down and sit with you. I just kind of wanted to relax. And so I did that. Came over the hill, and Mason's like, hey, man, there's a big elk down there. So I sit down and glass it up. And I'm pretty sure it's a 6x6. Yep. I think we were debating as a 5x6 or a 6x6, and this is a big elk. And fog started rolling in. We saw a guy, the only guy in that basin, go put a stalk on it. And it was about to be probably the most epic stalk we could have saw because we watched it all from third person, and the biggest, thickest fog I've seen rolled in, and we had about 10 yards of visibility.
Unreal. It was went from crystal clear glassing conditions to watching this herd of elk with a big herd bull in it, and a guy bombing off the mountain after it. And then the guy stalking it got within 200 yards, and within a matter of probably 15 seconds, the entire basin was just fogged over and visibility was down to maybe 50 feet.
It was one of those cool experiences where as the clouds crested the top of the mountain, they just roll off the top of the mountain. And, they literally look like they're just tumbling down the mountain, these clouds, and they just filled the whole basin in one wind gust. It was super cool to see, but I didn't get to see the guy put the stalk on. Mason talked to him later, got the whole story. I just wasn't feeling that good, so I think I went back and went to bed that afternoon.
Right, it's kind of watching a sweet action video on HBO, and right when it got to the best part, it cut to commercial. It's right there. And we never got to find out what happened until later that night. So basically, the rest of the day was pretty uneventful, glassing around, not really seeing much. Nothing, no deer. We didn't see any deer that day.
No.
Walked around a little bit, saw a little bit of deer sign, but not what we'd expect up there in the high country. At least compared to what we were seeing in Colorado the year before. And later that night, I ended up climbing all the way to the top of the mountains and running down the ridge to basically just glassing different basins for just hopefully see some mule deer coming out to feed in the afternoon. And had a super close encounter with a bighorn sheep, which is a nice ram, not a mature ram, but I don't know, maybe 3/4 curl ram, and they are a lot bigger than you imagine them to be when you're that close. So that was a super cool experience for me. Never seen one before that close. And then cruising on down the mountain, glassing different basins, and a guy walks up behind me, and well, first of all, I get to the one basin I was really excited about, and find out there's cows up at 13,000 feet elevation.
Yeah, like cattle.
Right where I was expecting
cows.
to see like sheep and hopefully some big mule deer bucks. There's cows and nothing else. And a guy comes up behind me, and it turned out being the guy that was stalking those elk. And he was out there all by himself hunting elk. His name was Cannon. And talking to him, and he was the one that stalked that elk. And he got close on him, but they moved away from him just before he got a shot. And then he was chasing some bugles later that morning. And then he was out there by himself glassing bulls. So picture walking 3 or 4 miles uphill the entire way to the top of this mountain where his camp was, cruising down a ridge line at 90 degrees about 1.5 miles, and then dropping down the opposite side of the ridge another 1,500 feet elevation. That's where he was hunting, and he was by himself. So,
well, that's what he's saying. This guy's crazy. He's doing some crazy terrain, crazy distances, solo, moving, putting a lot of land behind him.
This guy was going hardcore.
He was going hard.
So I can only imagine if he wasn't new to this either, and it was very clear when I talked to him. So I'm sure he was able to handle whatever he got himself into. But he was, from what I watched him do and saw where he was going by himself and ready to pack a bull elk, not a mule deer, a bull elk, where he was going, is pretty extreme. So this guy, I have a lot of respect for him. But it was just cool to see someone like that where I was. I didn't expect to see anyone where I was. How I felt like I was pretty remote, and then seeing a guy like that, it's you almost have a lot of respect for guys that are back there with you.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool. And I talked to some people. I talked to a 13 or 14-year-old girl that was going to shoot I think she drew a bighorn tag. She shot way bigger animals than any of us have ever shot. She was a well more seasoned hunter than us. I think she was 14. She shot what was that? What was that one?
Ibex?
Yeah, she shot her ibex. I think it's a triple trophy down there, I think is what they're saying it. She shot 2 legs of it, and her last leg of it was the bighorn. She's 14 or 15 years old. And she was going the same country we were, the same elevations, the same amount of rain we were in with her dad. And this girl was just super hardcore. I was looking at some pictures with him. We were just kind of shooting a breeze, and he straight up said to me, he goes, "I've hunted here, and I've scouted here, and I haven't seen a mule deer." I was like, "Really?" He goes, "I've hunted this. My buddy's hunted this, and I've never seen a mule deer up here." I get back to see Mason. We start talking. I'm pretty sure he got the same type of information. We both talked to people that you could kind of maybe trust and that it wasn't their first time hunting in the high country. And when they both say you're not in the right area, you move. So we moved.
Yeah. Which is it was kind of disappointing because you just the terrain we were in, it just looked like absolute epic mule deer habitat. And then the more people we talked to on that trip when we dropped down to lower elevation and talked to more of the locals, they said poaching was a really big deal in that area. So I think when they get bad winters and the snow starts pushing mule deer down the elevation, it's like the locals must just slaughter them.
Yeah, so that kind of ruined our hopes, and not really our hopes, but kind of we were a little bummed out. So we found a spot, lower elevation, set up camp, and I got real sick.
Yeah.
Kind of sucked.
Yeah, what happened with you getting sick? That's kind of the next thing I wanted to get into there.
So I was pretty worn out, more or less, from the week, from the drive, from the hiking and trying to get to different areas to see. We were trying to scout as much as we could up there in a very short time because we knew it was a great area and just weren't turning things up. So I probably pushed myself harder than I should have, but I wasn't too worried about it. I thought I knew my body pretty well, so I thought I could push through and deal with it.
I mean, we felt pretty terrible in Colorado before, too, on the previous year, so we didn't really think anything of it.
I felt terrible when I was in Wyoming. I felt terrible when I was in Colorado, and I just dealt with it the same way I did in New Mexico. I actually felt the best I ever felt that afternoon for lunch because we went down to the town, got some food, shot the breeze with some people. Yeah, shot the breeze with some people, got a new game plan. And went up and got real sick. I felt like I had just a real bad cold, and I started coughing up blood, and it just wasn't good. And so I just felt like I was getting a cold, so I went to bed, went to sleep, told Mason, go hunt, I'm gonna go to sleep. we'll get back after it tomorrow morning. And I think you came back. You can tell from there, because to be honest, I don't remember a lot of it. I just, I was pretty exhausted, honestly, is how I felt.
Right, yeah. So I went hunting that afternoon. I came back to the truck and opened the door and woke Michael up. And when he woke up, when I opened the door, I could just tell something was wrong. He seemed like he was out of it or something was wrong. So I told him, hey, maybe we should drop the lower elevation. And he just still seemed completely out of it. He's like, okay. So he hopped first he was going to drive down off the mountain, and then I don't know if it was his awareness or what. We both kind of decided it was better that I drive off the mountain. So I hopped in the driver's seat, and he hopped in the passenger seat, and he's slept a lot of the way down into town, and we got a hotel down lower elevation, and kind of spent the night there. I don't know if maybe your symptoms even got even worse. Would you say they got worse once we were at the hotel?
I felt better at the hotel. I actually felt a lot better. I still was coughing up. I was coughing up a lot of blood, and I was having trouble breathing, but I was breathing a lot better, and I wasn't as foggy. My mind wasn't as foggy. And I was feeling pretty good, which was related to the oxygen. I was getting more oxygen in my body, so I was feeling better. And did obviously probably what you shouldn't do is did some research online instead of going to the hospital, and read a bunch online, and everything what it says what I had. Get to low elevation, rest, recuperate.
Our hotel was still over a mile high though.
Yeah, we're at 7,200 I think at the hotel.
Yeah, so going from 12,000 to a mile high, we thought that was good, but still, if you're that high, it's still not ideal.
So I ended up getting real sick and Mason went hunting for another day, came back to the hotel, and I had I couldn't do anything. I had zero energy. I could barely walk around. I just didn't feel good. And Mason talked me into it. He's like, you might want to go to the hospital. So I was like, yeah, I'll go to the hospital. I'll get some medicine. I'll recuperate, and we'll go back hunting. And so we both agreed that's probably a good idea. So I went there thinking I was just going to get something for my headache. That was probably the worst part, with my headache.
Right.
And get in there, and it was pretty wild. I don't know if we want to. Do we want to go?
Yeah, you kind of go into
All right.
What happened there.
So I get to the hospital. I walk in, check myself in. Mason's hanging out with me. I didn't feel too good. Didn't tell my girlfriend. Didn't tell my family. Didn't tell them anything. Just kind of let it ride. Figured I was fine. I'd be all right. Go back into the room, sit down, getting stuff checked in. I just started a new job, so I didn't have my health insurance literally started the day before I went out hunting. So I had nothing. So they're like asking me all those questions, like trying to go through, do you really have insurance? Don't you? Asking me all these questions. In the midway through there, they put the finger pinch thing on you that they put on for your pulse oxygen and your pulse and all this. And the lady's like, man, this thing's broken. It's not working. And so she goes and gets another one. And when she went and got another one, another lady walked in and put it on. And this one's like hardwired, and she does it. And she looks at the first lady, and my pulse oxygen was 41, I think, at that time. The first one was 39. First machine said 39. My second machine said 41. They looked at each other. They didn't say a word, and they walked out. I didn't think too much of it. And like 6 other individuals walked in. There was a bunch, maybe 6, 7. No exaggeration on this. And they just literally scooped me up under my arms, and we ran down the hallway. And I had no idea what was going on. I'm in New Mexico. I'm in Las Vegas, New Mexico. I'm not like the greatest hospitals ever. And they're just running me down the hall. I'm like, man, they really do it different here in New Mexico. They get after it. Like they don't mess around with their job. And so they throw me in this room, and they're just going crazy. There's a guy in the corner standing, a little 5'3" guy, and he's just directing everybody. You do this, you do this, you do this. And people are going crazy, running around me. I'm getting blood drawn different areas, EKG hooked up, just big mask over my face, just pumping oxygen into me. And at this point, I really don't know what's going on, but I know it's probably not good. So I just don't know really what to think of it, because I went in there for a headache, and this goes on, and I have no idea what a 39 or 41 on a pulse oxygen meant. So finally, when they started getting it under control, they're like, how'd you get here, asking me all these questions? So I call Mason in. They call Mason in. I called Mason on the phone, and I'm already like not scared. I wasn't really scared, but I had no clue what was going on. And when Mason walked in, and his face, he literally looked like he saw a ghost. I've never seen Mason go from like, he walked, turn a corner, he just is like, looks shocked. So I'm like, what is going on with me? Why are all these people flipping out? Like, I seriously thought something happened from the time I got to the hospital till when they're there. Like, I thought maybe part of my face fell off. I'm not even kidding when I say that. Like, I thought something very terrible happened because everyone's looking at me like, what is... So Mason looks at me, and they're asking him all these questions, and he's like nervous now because he doesn't know what's going on either. And they put him on the pulse oxygen, and I don't know exactly, but I think he was in the 60s. And they're like, holy smokes, we need to get this guy oxygen. So now I start to realize what's happening. We were both really low on oxygen and scary low. And Mason's like, I'm good. They're like, all right, if you're fine. They're like, so he didn't take anything and just hung there and hung out. We're at 4,000 feet now. And come to find out, I think anything below 90, you get put on oxygen for if your pulse ox is below 90, you get put on oxygen. They told me like 75 is cardiac arrest. You can have cardiac arrest at 75, and they say you can be dead if you're below 50. And I was cruising around at 39, like not joking. It's not funny, but looking back, it kind of is interesting that the guy that's in charge of me, getting me to the hospital and everything's like below the stage of cardiac arrest. And we're doing like 60, 70 mile an hour, just cruising through town. And I'm just, thinking about going to get food before I get there. And they're like, we cannot believe that you guys walked in here.
That's just how resilient we are.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I barely made it. I had a terrible week on the hill. It was just cool. Not cool, it sucked, but the doctors were just very concerned on how I got to the point I was at to get to get pulmonary edema, altitude sickness, which is lazy man syndrome, smoker syndrome, to then go and be cruising around with 39 pulse ox. It was like completely oxymoron. So they had no clue what was going on. So they banned me from going to high country. No more high country, no more flying. So until I get all checked out. So it might change my mind to how I hunt. So that's how we got here on this conversation. But yeah, my goals are high country mule deer.
So what is there anything that you could have changed for that not to happen?
I think one thing, now knowing what I know, the biggest problem I had, my knee sucked. That was tough to train, but just getting off doxycycline for 3 weeks and having Lyme's disease, it's probably not a good idea to go put yourself in an environment of that nature. Lyme's disease is terrible as a disease. And the
Doxy was a treatment for Lyme disease, just so everyone knows. He wasn't doping on it.
Yeah, no, doxycycline's the medicine. It's a common medicine for Lyme disease. I just wasn't hanging out taking it on the weekends. But that medicine I'm going to say is worse than Lyme disease itself. And for anybody that's taken it knows, you get the worst hangover on that medicine. Your body you just are a bum when you're taking that medicine. It's not fun. So looking back, the things I would change if I get sick like that, I'd make the decision and say, Mason, I'm not going to ruin your hunt. This is what we can do, but I can't do this type of hunt. And then also, if you have knee surgery in March, significant knee surgery, and you can't get yourself in the position to train the way you need to, these backcountry hunts are not easy. They're not just, let me just go plan this week and go do it. You got to bust your butt. You can do them. You're just not going to see the game you have to see, and you're not going to be able to get yourself in bow range.
And to let me cut in, to anyone that doesn't know, Michael specifically, if anyone else, that would be going would probably struggled and probably just wouldn't have done it. But Michael's so boneheaded that he's, no matter even if he's not in shape, he's one, not going to tell you he's not in shape, and two, he's just going to go through and do it and not complain about it, which can be a problem.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point. That's a good point. If your body tells you can't do it, you're not stronger than the mountain. And altitude is no joke. Yeah. You are not. You're going to be being boneheaded in altitude. Being boneheaded in these types of environments isn't the way to get about it. You're not putting yourself any farther ahead. Yeah, I mean, it sucked. And I wasn't about to tell Mason it sucked. And I wasn't going to complain, but it sucked.
Yeah.
And now when we go out there, again, because I'm going to, that if it's not what I need to do, I know Mason can handle himself at the altitude. I know Mason can hunt solo. I can hunt at the car, be more comfortable, and then when he gets something, we can make a plan from there. And if I'm not going to say that's what I'm going to ever do, but if we're in this situation and something occurs of that nature,
yeah, you
got
can
to
recognize the symptoms again. So basically, some of the kind of takeaways from it is if you think you're struggling from anything like that, not feeling right, don't push it.
Yeah. You don't gain anything. You actually hurt yourself. You put your buddy in a bad situation where he's hauling your ass off the mountain. He's scared because he doesn't know what's going on. And it's not just you when you're out there doing these backcountry hunts. I mean, even if it is just you, you got to be smart about it. You're putting yourself in a situation where if you're about to get hauled off the mountain, the only way you're getting hauled off the mountain is medevac. You're getting pulled off by a helicopter. No one's going to walk up there with the cart and put you in an ambulance.
No one's bringing a deer cart up there?
If they do, I'll say, just take me out. Just don't even take me out on that thing. Just put it down. Yeah. Roll me off that cliff. Make sure it's high. But yeah, no, definitely a learning experience. Definitely gave me a good perspective on your personal body, what your personal body can do and what it does when, to think that your body says, I can't go anymore, let me just fill your lungs up with blood. That's a pretty crazy, situation for your body to think that's what's the best scenario for it. So your body isn't a joke. You got to take it seriously and eat, drink, and rest when you need to rest.
Gotcha. Yeah, and then the only thing else that I have to say from that is we're planning a big hunt here in 2020, heading to Alaska, a little lower elevation. Yeah, and this is right now, Michael, I think is a good time to have Mason commit to it.
Oh, because Mason hasn't committed to this. So 2019, Bo's going to be chasing elk and whitetail. Mason and I are probably going to be chasing mule deer by the looks of it, getting some good ideas on. So 2019, we're locked in on our plan. 2020, I said it's moose hunting. Bo and I said it's moose hunting. I've been making my calls, doing my rounds. And Mason hasn't actually, I think we told him once or twice, and he kind of laughed about it.
Yeah, he's never confirmed.
Should he confirm now?
I guess I'm in.
All right.
Yeah, I don't put on the spot. I guess I'm in.
Yeah, and we've been talking about it behind his back a little bit, but if we have to go 4-man, we'll make a plan for 4-man. If we have to make a plan for 3-man, we have to make a plan.
Yeah.
I know there's a couple other suspects, I'll call them, that we could probably twist their arm into it without really having to twist their arm.
Yeah, Kurt said he's in.
Yeah, Kurt, we can throw him out there. There's some good candidates to go put yourself in a condition of moose. The moose is a different animal.
The thing I'm worried about of it, I'm not going to go into too much detail. No.
Oh.
You.
No, why me?
You haven't had good luck with things, and I'm pretty sure it's going to come down to a grizzly attack, 100%. So, calling it now, and most likely it's going to result in you getting by, and I'm done. So,
no. So, how it's going to go? And I know it's not good to joke about situations of this nature, but
I'll pack you out, Michael.
Exactly. I know Mason saved me twice now. Mason saved my life. He's packed my elk out for me. He's been my cameraman. He's been my guide. He's got this down. Mason will haul me out. Bo's left for the wolves, and I know for sure I'm getting out. There's no questions asked. If something happens, even though Bo and Mason are related, I know I'm coming out on that.
Well, how the hell do I get on Mason's good list here to get carried out?
Well, probably a few more free beers.
Kurt ain't taking me out.
No, my goodness, Kurt's gonna keep hunting. Yeah. We're gonna have to come get Kurt weeks and months later because he'll just he'll live out of his a First Light jacket as a camp for the rest of his life.
We'll put you in a raft, sing Kumbaya, and send you down river.
We'll give him a box of ammo, a rifle.
And he doesn't need it.
Yeah, give him a little 4-inch
So I packed Kurt out one time. He rolled his ankle tracking a deer here in Pennsylvania. I had to pack him out.
Yeah, you did. True. Yeah. You did. You've been a lifesaver.
Literally.
So I guess with that being said, to be continued, this story is. But guys, thanks again for coming on the podcast here. And
sure, thank you.
Really appreciate it. Anything else you want to add?
It was decent.
Yeah.
Decent.
Let's see what we can get with some guns. I know your bow's going out. Mason's done. He's tagged out.
Yeah, Mason killed
up on a nice
big
one.
9-point. Anybody that follows the Instagram page and see Mason's big 9-point that he killed there in Pennsylvania a couple weeks ago. So I really don't care about him right now.
Yeah.
Other than that, Michael, you have a tag. Your girlfriend's got a tag.
Yep.
I've got a tag. Shit's gonna hit the fan tomorrow. So
Yeah, Bo's been saying he has a 100% chance. How many times have you heard that, Mason?
About every day he went out.
100% he's getting one. And
Yeah.
I love the I'm getting a deer attitude. So let's see what we can get.
Honestly, we're about to run on 3 hours of sleep because it's about midnight right now.
Yeah.
We're finishing this up. Don't matter. I'm gonna get in there before everybody else. 100% chance, success. Calling it right now.
Yep.
God damn it! I gotta quit doing this.
I got my girlfriend set up in a Taj Mahal tree stands, and she better be awake all day because I know I'm sleeping. So, so she better get it done.
All right, guys. Time to sign off. We'll see you.
Yep.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of East Meets West Hunt with your host, Bo Martonik. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit eastmeetswesthunt.com, Facebook at East Meets West Outdoors, and Instagram at East Meets West Hunt. If you enjoyed today's episode, please review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.